Freedom is the right to tell what they do not want to hear. CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. Tired of the same repetitive government narratives? Then wave goodbye to the distractions and rhetoric of corporate media. For this is Anti-Media Radio.
But I want to get the language right.
The big government is in trouble.
You're all a bunch of slaves! Bunch of slaves!
What we need in the United States is not violence and lawlessness, but is love and wisdom and compassion toward one another.
What's your definition of media?
And now, here's your host, S.M. Gibson.
It is March the 7th, 2017, the day the corporate narrative died. My name is S.M. Gibson, and this is Anti-Media Radio. Unless you've been underground today, you know that there's been absolute huge news coming out from WikiLeaks this morning. Vault 7 has finally been released, at least the first part of it. We're going to dive into that tonight extensively. We are also going to talk about a news story that is going very, very, very underreported right now. What's going on with the United States and North Korea and China and Russia. Breaking about 10 minutes before we came on air, AFP is reporting that China is telling North Korea to stop any of its nuclear arsenal, any of its provoking. So China is apparently trying to nip in the bud whatever North Korea has been up to. For those of you who didn't hear, they fired some rockets the other day. North Korean state media was reporting that Kim Jong-un was present for them being fired, and then were saying that they were supposedly, trying to go after military bases, U.S. military bases in Japan. Whether that's actually true or not, or North Korean state propaganda, who knows? Because, just like every government in the world, especially North Korea, just because they say it doesn't make it so. It could have just been some sort of show that he was doing for his people, which North Korea is known for doing. And also, the Republicans have announced their replacement for the Obamacare bill. We're going to talk about that a little bit as well. Rand Paul is Obamacare light, and Thomas Massey is actually calling it just a flaming pile, or stinking pile of garbage. And it was written by the insurance lobby. We're going to talk about that as well. But before we go any further, I want to go ahead and bring on our co-host, Mr. Shannon Madden. Shannon, what is up?
What's up, Mr. Gibson? How you enjoying life back in Alabama?
Oh, can't complain. Still trying to get adjusted to the time and being back at home and everything else. But yeah, no complaints.
Is your wife already sick of you and wants you to leave again?
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much.
Vault 7, man. There's a lot of dank stuff coming out of the WikiLeaks.
And the thing about what we learned today, for the most part, I would say, for the crazy people out here like us, there was really no massive revelations, but there was a lot of confirmations. I think is the way to put what we found out this morning. Everything's spying on you.
So I can take off the tinfoil hat now?
That's basically the only difference, yeah. But there's still going to be people out there that think you should wear it because it doesn't involve Russia. It doesn't involve Russia did it. So until
it actually involves the CIA, which is your taxpayer dollars harder working in. A very common theme on the show.
It unfortunately is. It feels like even today, it feels like we're just kind of beating a dead horse here. But there is a lot of confirmation that didn't exist before today. The big one is, of course, the narrative has continued about Trump and Russia, blah, 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 blah. That the CIA, it's the UMBRAGE program, the umbrage, it allows the CIA to conduct cyber attacks and pin it basically on where they came from. So, for instance, with let's just say, for instance, the DNC, we've still yet to see any evidence regarding Trump being tied to Russia. We, of course, know what James Clapper has said. James Clapper has literally lied under oath. No one cared. He got a promotion, and people think everything he's saying about this is the gospel. But let's just say, for instance, there was evidence that this came from Russia, actual hard evidence. What we learned today, that would kind of throw all that out the window because it shows that the CIA is more than capable of conducting such a thing and then pinning it back on someone else. So it kind of throws everything up into the air with a lot, really. You know, when they say what's Russia, 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 it could be somebody in Germany or it could be somebody in Langley, Virginia with the CIA and make it pin back and attach back to somewhere in Russia. And there you go. That's who did it. We also, I think the big one too is, which, it's another one of those tinfoil hat things, the whole Michael Hastings with Rolling Stone. I think most people were aware, for the most part, that it definitely appeared that Michael Hastings' car was hijacked and he was killed for whatever reason. We know that he was writing a story on the CIA at the time of his death. And guess what? We found out today that these cars can be remotely hacked for the purpose of assassinations.
Wow.
Pretty revealing and terrifying stuff. Do you think, Shannon, that anybody's actually going to act on this information? I mean, the biggest one, I'll say this too, we've got the weeping angel.
Hey, remind me again, how did Michael Hastings die again? You just said it just a moment ago. No, there's not too many people going to do anything about this. Again, I mean, we know that the glove is tightening around our neck, and now we just know what the glove's made out of. Yeah, okay, we confirmed that, yeah, there is a glove around our neck. I really honestly believe there's going to be the same collective yawn that came out over the, let's say, for instance, the quote-unquote hacked DNC leaks.
Well, I'll say this. I've had it on CNN here for about the past 30 minutes just to kind of get a gauge for what narrative they're spewing today. And I haven't seen any mention at all, period, of any of this. That's not to say they weren't talking about it earlier in the day, because it's not like I was sitting here watching it. But I mean, this is the biggest story in quite some time, and they're continuously talking about Trump.
And corporate media has been instructed to give the news with a collective yawn. The news is so loud in alternative media and the anti-media right now about this particular story, because it really is truly the biggest story right now. That in this document dump, they pretty much give you the blueprint, if you have any kind of hacking skills whatsoever, to be able to hack pretty much. We're talking about TVs and smartphones and pretty much just about a lot of common, ordinary devices that may happen to have a camera, that may happen to have a microphone, may happen to have personal information on it. Which you think about all of the things that have computers now that encompass our whole entire life, and every single bit of it can be compromised and used against. And like you just said, in this case, the story that's on the front page of anti-media right now, the CIA capable of cyber false flag to blame Russia. They're capable of a cyber false flag to blame anybody for anything.
Oh, certainly. And, I think a real big one in this, and this is one I've definitely had people just scoff at me over in the past. And I was like, yeah, I'm telling you, they can do it. But we found out that with these smart TVs, that they can have a false off mode. And while the user thinks that their television is off, it is not. And it is recording their activities.
Yeah, well, my TV at the house doesn't turn off. You hit a button and it goes into a quote unquote standby mode. So now we know that the reason for the standby mode isn't just to save and conserve power on the TV and yada, yada, this, that, and the other. I'm going to tell you right now, after reading some of, and this is confirmation of other stories that we've reported at the antimedia.org for quite some time now. I remember us reporting on this show the story about the Samsung TVs, and I know Samsung was the big brand name, but there were several other brand names included in that. Yeah, man.
And that's something
I'm unplugging my TV tonight. That's straight up. When I get in watching TV tonight, I'm unplugging it.
Well, that's something that's been reported in independent media for quite some time. And of course, it's just crazy. Oh, it's fake news. Is it? Is it? Because only fake news right now, for the most part. And of course, you've got your few off pages that are just really disinformation sites. But corporate media, we had a girl anchor from MSNBC today come out speaking about the whole Russian, of course, because that's still what they're talking about. She was interviewing Republican Congressman Chris Stewart of Utah, and this was actually yesterday this aired. Anyways, she said, let's see, let me find her exact quote because it's pretty amazing. The congressman began speaking again, saying, well, for example, basically they were in a dialogue about the Russians hack, or were they involved with Donald Trump? So anyways, well, for example, we've had some people claim that there were direct ties between Trump campaign officials and Russian KGB agents. I'm not aware of any of those. Ms. Turr interrupted. What news organizations have claimed that? He then responded, I think there's several, but that's not the point. I mean, I could say who they were, but that's not the point. She then interrupted him very aggressively, might I add, and said, could you? I don't think any news organizations actually claim that there were direct ties between the Trump campaign and Russian spies. That's MSNBC. And for anybody who would like to hear that themselves, it is right now on the right-hand column of the antimedia.org under My News. Please go check it out. There's a story up from wearechange.org. So you can read the entire and watch the interview. But you have Katie Turr NBC reporter, MSNBC, saying basically that no media organization has said that. And
that's fascinating. That really is. Now, we'll see if she has a job come tomorrow for having said that on their airwaves.
Of course she
luckily,
will.
she
Of
said it
course
in the
she
middle of the
will.
day. Hopefully, there wasn't a whole lot of people talking.
Well,
My question to you is though,
NBC, so nobody was watching. We do know that. We know that
this is interesting though, and this must be something that has been discussed privately between you and Nick, as far as when is mainstream media finally going to realize that they're going to have to dust up their brand a little bit in order to be able to remain viable and start actually, not necessarily breaking news vault 7, but a little blurb here, a little blurb there, and start shaping or should I say changing the shape of their narrative. When do you think something like that, and maybe this is one of the very first signs of that?
No, I mean they started that from time to time. There was an instance, and I think I mentioned it on air one night. There was an instance on CNN. I don't know, it's probably been about a month ago now, that they had Rand Paul on to discuss how broke the United States was, and he's just like, "Look, we're completely broke." And then directly after that, they had on Tulsi Gabbard saying, "Hey, guess what? We're funding terrorists." And then right after that, they highlighted the protesters up in North Dakota for Dakota Access. And it was probably about 30 minutes they did all this, and they packed it all in about this 30-minute window. And after that, they kind of cut that off and went back to whatever they were talking about. So I think there is a push a little bit to kind of, they're not silencing it. But then again, you have to remember the DAPL was probably the biggest surprise of all that, because Tulsi Gabbard is a member of Congress and Rand Paul is a member of the Senate. So you've got, somebody that's a member that's in the House of Representatives and the U.S. Senator that wants to come on and talk. That's a lot different than say other things. So was it them reporting, I know Jake Tapper kind of got into it with Tulsi Gabbard, acting like, "Really, we're funding terrorists," kind of a thing. She's like, "Yeah, we are. I was there."
Yeah, well, he's a status mouthpiece. I mean, of course, he's not supposed to let a statement like that, however true it may be, go unchecked. You know how that works.
Well, certainly. And I'm waiting for the day we start finding out put crazy alert, put on your tinfoil hat for this one, Shannon. I'm waiting for the day we find out that who and what members of corporate media are actually either in the CIA or CIA assets.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, and that will happen. I mean, whether we find out or not, who knows? But we found out a lot so far. A lot of people didn't think we would, but I think that's...
Hey, and again, Vault 7 is not the end of this dump. This is just this installment. So everybody stay tuned, because again, what was it? 8,000 pages of documents.
Yeah, a little over 8,000. Yeah,
so that's a lot of information to sift through. So yeah, hang on to your hats, because this is just the very beginning of this.
Year zero, and it's supposed it covers from 2013 to 2016. There's no telling what we're all going to find out when this is all said and done with, how deep the rabbit hole is going to go. The real important thing here, I think, is will something like this, will it wake people up? Because again, I think a lot of this information, this is definitely a confirmation for a lot of stuff, but so much of this has been reported here and there for a while. And this is just the stamp, boom, this is all true, this is all happened. It comes directly from them, like directly, there's no getting out of it, this is what they're doing. How many people will it wake up? Do you think it'll have much of an effect? I mean, that's the real question, and I don't know if I know the answer to it. My pessimistic side says it probably won't, but I think something like the elections that we just saw do show that even if it's to a small degree that people are paying attention more than it appears, because you did see Bernie Sanders, who, whatever his policies were, was an outsider, and Donald Trump, whatever his policies are, was an outsider to the establishment. So, maybe people are kind of soaking some of this stuff up in the back of their minds. I don't know. And I wonder how it plays out. I know when we see something like, we want to have this huge march about Trump's tax returns, which is just idiotic, because what is it going to accomplish when you should be out there marching over something like this? Hey, stop spying on us with literally everything that we have, whatever device it may be, whether it's our cars, our TVs, or our phones. They're spying on you in every single facet of your life. That's what people should be marching over. But of course, people get swept up in the propaganda, and this is what we have. This is a society we have.
And again, the answer to your question is I think it's going to be met with a collective yawn. I really do. And that is so tragic, because if people would unify and people would educate themselves, and also the people that are educated kind of tone it down a little bit and realize that a lot of the people that you converse with online and in your day-to-day life have been conditioned since birth to cling to the state. So, we need to be we need to be doing what we can to educate whoever we can. And I definitely am very proud to be associated with Anti-Media, because I feel like we're doing a fine job doing it.
Well, I think the more as time goes on, especially in this very divisive culture that we live in right now, and things are so divided, I'm not so sure. And there is probably, to a certain degree, yes, it is definitely to the state, but it feels more like people, they're clearly in their party lines. They've divided themselves up. Well, I'm a liberal, and that's what they're. Because if it's Trump, then they're not obsessed with the state; they're obsessed with their brand. It's the state, but it's their own brand of the state, what they want. Because you don't hear complaints about bombs being dropped. People want to protest Trump. Here's something that people should be protesting Trump on already. And again, they're talking about his tax returns, which is idiotic. How much grief did we give Barack Obama on his drone strikes on this program, Shannon? Quite a bit.
Yeah, pretty much every other episode.
We have a story right now up under the IR News section of the antimedia.org. U.S. drone strikes have gone up 432% since Donald Trump became president of the United States of America. Basically, during Obama's 2 terms in office, he approved 540 targeted drone strikes, based roughly 1 every 5 days. So Trump has already approved at least 36 drone strikes, but he's only been in office for 45 days, and that's averaging out to a little like 1.25 a day. So Obama was carrying these things out roughly every 5 days for 8 years straight, and Trump's already doing it a little over, 1.25 days. So that's a horrendous stat, and if we keep along that path, there's no telling what kind of trouble that we're going to see and we're going to get into, especially when you have, and look, Obama did it too, but Trump, he got in office saying we don't want war. Look, Americans, it's obvious, even with the scare tactics of 9/11 and the fear that they shoved down people's throat, and everybody's scared of everything. I think it's very obvious that citizens of the United States of America are not anxious for war, not like the media would have us believe. And I'll tell you why I say that, because when Bush got elected the first time, he says, we're going to stop policing the world. We're not, because Clinton, you know, he did all this stuff too. People forget that. And Bush said, we're going to stop it. And of course, he gets in office. 9/11 happens. We all know what happened there, which swept basically Barack Obama into office 8 years later.
Oh, no. Wait a minute, though. We had a good reason to go to war because, you know, terror.
Well, certainly. But so then you get Obama coming in, and his rhetoric was such at a high level. He won a Nobel Peace Prize just for saying words and say, we're going to change all this, and we're going to get out of these wars. We're going to stop these wars. And he bombs twice as many countries as Bush.
That's change if you think about it.
He stops 0 of the wars, despite the rhetoric from the media and out of Washington. 0 of the wars were stopped. He expanded wars, though. We weren't in Syria, we weren't in Libya, and he changed all that. So I guess that is change. And so, you know, Americans clung to, hey, we don't want war with Bush. And then they did it with Obama, extremely, you know, think about how much he won by then. Then you have Trump coming in. Everybody knew what Hillary was about, and despite what she said. But she was almost promoting it. We're going to have no-fly zones in Syria. Everybody knew what she was about. And Trump said, we got to stop doing this stuff. We got to stop doing this stuff. So he gets in, and here we are again. And again, it's only, you know, it's not even 50 days in office, but we're seeing it ramp up. And that is definitely not in the direction we need to be headed. That leads me to a real what's going on in the South Pacific right now. I addressed a little begin at the top of the show how North Korea is launching or launched some missiles in the direction of Japan a couple of days ago. And so
fell into the sea, so you know nobody was hurt. It was just pretty much a display of power.
Yeah, if you want to call it that, it was a display of something.
Yeah.
So the United States then responded by the Terminal High Altitude Area Defense System, and it has now arrived in South Korea. And so we're shipping in way more weapons into the area, preparing for more war. Of course, China objected to this. Of course, Russia objected to this, because it almost seems like it's an excuse for us to lay more militaristic groundwork in the region. We all know what's happening to the west of Russia with Ukraine and Poland, especially Poland. There's a heavy military presence right there from the United States and NATO. But this gives them an excuse to kind of close in on the east a little bit more. And China's like, you're not doing this. This is definitely not happening. So, you know, like I said, 40 minutes ago now, breaking news is that China is telling North Korea they got to cut this out, because they know that this is just going to give the United States an excuse to ramp up what they're doing. So they've called for a halt for North Korea's nuclear and missile activities. And I think, you know, it's kind of what I've always said, or it really doesn't matter if I say it or not. I think it's kind of the situation. Into the Middle East and we overthrow all these countries, blah, 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 blah. And for all these reasons, but nobody ever goes after North Korea. Now, we can certainly have all our reasons because of the resources and this, that, and the other. But at the end of the day, the United States can't go after North Korea because China is right there. And China's not going to put up with that. And that's going to start a direct war with China, very close to China. That's not going to fly unless you're ready to engage in an open war with China. That's why you can't go after North Korea. That being said, even though North Korea is crazy, Kim Jong-il and his son Kim Jong-un, both of which lunatics, and the insane stuff that they do, I don't think there's a really genuine threat from them because, again, China's right there to keep them in check. Because China don't want to go to war with the United States. It wants to go to war with China. And so anytime that North Korea wants to bow up and do something bonkers, China's there to put them in check and be like, look, this ain't going to fly. And they're there to, keep the boot on their throat. And that's what we're seeing right now. How far will this go? Will it hold? I think it will. I don't think China will let this get too out of hand because they can control what's going on in that region anyway. I think that's theirs to control. Now, the end game, who knows? Because people are definitely, I still overlooking the tension between China and the U.S. right now, which is building and building and building, while the media creates this whole we're in the new Cold War narrative, and everything's Russia's fault. Everything's about Russia. I mean, you trip on a rock going down the street, it's Russia's fault. That's about where we're at. It's insanity because there's no evidence. Oh, well, the National Security Director said, yeah, the National Security Director that lied under oath, don't care. Could care less what he says. The way people are going after Sessions, like this guy directly lied to the American people to a far greater degree than anything that came out of Jeff Sessions' mouth. And I am not somebody that's going to defend Jeff Sessions, but this guy was asked, James Clapper does the NSA spy on citizens of the United States? And he's like, no, we don't. Don't happen. Sorry. And guess what? Edward Snowden came along within less than a month after that and said, hey, guess what, James? You are incorrect. So anything that idiot says, I have no idea. But they do, because they keep buying into the same they just pound this narrative over and over and over. It's similar to what Trump did, because there's so much about Trump that I think is you cannot trust. And I think it's like we're talking about with the drone strikes. He says one thing, and I think he's going to do another. What politician hadn't been like that? And I think that's what we're going to see more with him. That doesn't mean I think Trump is a Russian agent or in collusion with Russia or anything, because there's just nothing to suggest that. I'm sorry, that I've seen, and maybe it's there. But I'll say this: we haven't seen it yet. And if you say you have, you haven't, because it's not there yet. Just because all these departments come out, oh, this branch of government said it happened. So what? The government lies all the time. Did you read what was in the Vault 7 to what they're doing? So, and we see that it's very, okay. Speaking of Russia, if there was a journalist, Shannon, that was writing a piece on the KGB, okay, and his car goes into a tree at a bazillion miles an hour to the point that the engine flies 60 yards, and there were whispers that this guy was off, do you think the United States would go, Putin killed that guy? Look at what Putin's doing over there. He killed him. I think deservedly so if that happened. Putin does stuff like that. We know that he kills reporters. That doesn't mean it doesn't happen here. But here it's just like, oh, that was an accident. That was an accident. That didn't happen. And today we see evidence. Oh, wait, this stuff does happen. Now, is there evidence in there to say, oh, well, the CIA 100% killed Michael Hastings? No. The smoking gun for that's not in there. But everything leading up to it is in there. And for the people that say that's not possible or that's crazy, it actually shows that that is a tool they can use. Just
that works. Yep.
Well, that's a whole different one altogether. But you are correct.
No, that's the same. That's in the same ballpark, my friend.
It is, but you know, it's time for people to wake up. I mean, this is stuff that people like anti-media and dare I say it, for years, Alex Jones was saying a lot of this stuff. Now, Alex Jones is doing his own thing right now, and he's doing a different thing. And
He's definitely doing a different thing. Yes, he is.
And he is preaching about Trump and whatever.
He is sold out. Sold out.
That is. I don't subscribe to that message personally. I'll say that. But this is so much stuff that has been discussed and talked about for years, wherever, and people just refuse to believe it because they can't accept reality, because reality is so crazy and terrifying. It's not the picture that's painted for you on CNN or Fox or NBC, and it's not the picture that was painted for you in your history class, whether that's in high school or whether that was when you got your fancy expensive degree. They didn't tell you all that. What I paid for all this education, they didn't tell me any of that. That was true, they would have said it. If that was true, they would have said it. That's a line that I hear all the time. If that's true, somebody would say that. It's like somebody has said that, and you're just not paying attention because the powers that be don't want that said. So,
and there's too many people saying it to avoid it any longer. You know, it's one thing when you had that crazy guy over in the lived in that weird house over in the edge of town that was always talking about all that crazy CIA government conspiracy phooey.
And we both know a lot of that. We both know a lot of that can go too far too, and I think that is what turns people off with some of this, because and this is, I think, a disinformation tactic of the CIA, is they put out their own crazy conspiracies. And I think the more conspiracies there are out there, the more people can get confused, the more people can latch on the things that aren't true, that, you know, and there's so much to muddle it up. Just look at, for what the Kennedy assassination. Whatever you believe about the Kennedy assassination, there's 10 other people that believe 10 other stories. There's so many different stories out there. And some of them are plausible from multiple angles. They seem plausible anyway. And that's not by accident. I think the more theories there are out there, the more that you can go see, look at that, what that person believes. That's crazy. That's a crazy thing. I believe they do it with UFOs and aliens all the time too. If you can, because that's an easy one. If you attach something like Building 7 on 9/11, and then you attach somehow, does that person believe in, you see, well, they believe in aliens, they believe in UFOs, that's crazy. Look at this crazy person over here. And I think that's how they discredit a lot of people. Basically through peer pressure, and go and point somebody out and laugh at them. And nobody wants to be pointed at and thought of as crazy, so they just let it go. And they say, well, I don't believe it. And it's all public perception, and people have to stand up and realize, oh, wait, maybe we've been taken for a ride here. And I think the more people that stand up and go, there's something going on, then change is going to come. But until that people get over their insecurities and their fears of being judged or being perceived as crazy, or maybe it's just that they've really bought into the system that hard. I think that's probably a lot of it too. Like you were saying earlier, Shannon, people really, really, really are into the colors on their flag and the melodies and an anthem, and hey, there's nothing wrong with that, but you can't let it blind your vision. Just because one person subscribes to something doesn't mean everybody's going to, but you shouldn't let any of that stuff turn you away from the truth. And they do, they let it blind them, and we get in situations like this where I think it's too far gone. But Because look at what came out today. How is it not too far gone? They're not talking about it right now. Now, the people are talking about it. This is something that's been on social media all day long from people that are actually trying to inform people. I mean, I can't tell you how many different stories on Vault 7 today on the front page of the antimedia.org. Multiple. I mean, the headline right now is the CIA is capable of a cyber false flag to blame Russia. For the majority of the day, we had WikiLeaks releases Vault 7 reveals the CIA's hacking tools, and it's 6,000 words in depth on it, and aggregate from Zero Hedge, and a lot of it's from what WikiLeaks released as well. This information's out there. It's what do you want to accept and what don't you want to accept. Snowden changed a lot of the narrative, though. I do think that because of his credibility. And do you think it's by accident that he got stuck in Russia? I don't.
No. Then again, I mean, the way that he did it, which I'm sure the loopholes are being closed to make sure that never happens again with another security contractor. There will definitely be swift justice upon that before anybody leaves the country.
But look, we don't know who leaked what came out today, but we know it was somebody, and we know it wasn't Edward Snowden. And what was leaked today was a much bigger leak, I believe, than what even Snowden put out there, because Snowden was kind of saying, look, these programs exist. This is something they do. And today was kind of the
not only do these programs exist, but let us show you exactly what they came up with to do it with.
Yeah, let's show you exactly.
John McAfee's sitting in his living room right now laughing his ass off over a big glass of scotch. I guarantee it. Because he essentially talked about or hinted around about this very same thing on this program. I mean, again, America has just gotten completely soft, going back to what I was talking about earlier with the fact that, people are so apathetic toward this sort of thing because there's so much information overload. I think you hit the nail on the head with that. People are just, okay, well, yeah, whatever, WikiLeaks or whatever. I don't care what's on TV, and that's where a lot of people are. As long as I've got my cable TV, I can drive my little SUV. We've got the 2.3 requisite children or whatever it is now, dog in the yard, so on and so forth. I don't care about all that hooey and this, that, and the other. That doesn't affect me. I'll go ahead and go to work, pay my little taxes and do my little thing. Just everybody leave me out of it. And I think that's where a lot of people are at right now. I'm not going to say the vast majority of folks, but then again, you look at social media and there's still people crying about who won the presidential election. Well, based on the number you just stated about the current drone strikes under the less than 100 days in office, Donald Trump, seems like nothing has changed at all. Nothing.
Well,
yelling and screaming and hollering at one another, nothing has changed.
Now, and that I really want to bring this up too. We've got, about 20 minutes left here, a little under. And I want to bring up this healthcare business because people are freaking out about getting rid of Obamacare. Well, give me a break. I don't want to hear you're weeping over getting rid of Obamacare. Everybody was lied to. It didn't work like they said. Big shock. You get more government involved in something. These are the results that you see. Premiums right now are absolutely outrageous for people. So that leads us to the Republicans who they're going to repeal it. They're going to get rid of this thing. You have to, first off, you do have to have something to replace it with, whatever it may be. What they've proposed, they've now released the text of it, and Rand Paul has been on a complete mission the past week calling it Obamacare Light, and that's basically what it does. And I think the big thing here is you're still going to be taxed for certain things, but okay, here's the biggest problem with it, which there's a lot of problems with it. It's basically, I think it's worse than Obamacare because it's done under the guise that it's somehow not, and to me it actually appears that it's worse than Obamacare. But the mandate, and that is, if you don't have insurance, you have to pay the government. You have to pay them a fine, which is absolutely ludicrous. So this new proposed healthcare plan takes that out supposedly, but in all reality, it's still there, except you're going to be paying that not to the government, you're going to be paying it to the insurance company. And how that's going to work is if you're off of insurance, when you try to sign back up, there's going to be a fine and a penalty you're going to have to pay to get back on insurance. So look, I said that, and I think most people that pay attention to this realize that the insurance companies wrote Obamacare. And there's no question that the insurance companies wrote what was presented yesterday. No question about it. And it seems worse, and it seems like a way for them to make more money and screw more people. That's what these companies do, isn't it? That's what it's about.
I don't know. This is kind of a prickly issue for me. I currently do not have health care. Cannot just finally got to the point where, of course, here in the state of Alabama, and we've talked about it on the show a couple of times, we're actually in a monopoly.
As are many states.
The way Obamacare was set up, every other insurance company pulled out except for one, and that was our hometown heroes, Blue Cross Blue Shield. I was actually on United Healthcare, and they wound up dropping me toward the end of the year. So I was faced with either getting Blue Cross Blue Shield, which is priced outrageously high, unless you go through the marketplace. Oh, wait a minute, you can't go through the marketplace anymore because the state of Alabama has already set up roadblocks for people getting on marketplace. So you forget about that. So either you pay full price or you don't have insurance. And I, like a lot of Alabamians, just kind of opted out. And I'm actually currently, now that this conversation is taking place, I'm curious to see if at least the market's going to open back up and more people will come back into the state. I don't know yet.
Well, of course, that's what they're saying, but you realize that just because they say it doesn't mean that's going to happen. I'm under the belief that it's not going to, only because if you open up the market enough, then once you create that competition, you are going to drive the price down. And I don't think that this is going to do anything to drive the price down. If anything, I think it'll make prices go up. And they're already outrageous.
And the prices may go up, and then you have people competing within a certain range. And, it'll probably get a little bit more highly specialized as far as getting into the type of customer that, your type of needs that your customer has, as far as what type of insurance they need, how much insurance they need. I've always thought, you have automobile insurance, and of course that's required, I think, in just about every state in the union now. And you have to, in order to be able to operate your vehicle, and in the state of Alabama, even register your vehicle, you have to have insurance on it. So, but you can purchase a, minimum liability insurance, whatever your state's minimum liability requirements are. And, was curious as to why insurance companies didn't at least investigate these, all of these, I mean, there's millions of people that don't have health insurance right now. And there's a reason for that. And a lot of it is based around economic factors. You know, it's expensive to live in America with inflation being what it is. And that's, of course, that's a whole nother episode for, you know, for another day in the Fed.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and it's not the fact that the prices have been driven up. It's the fact that, you know, that's a reflection on where the value of our money is right now. And it's there for a particular reason. And one of these reasons, one of the myriad of reasons, is the fact of, well, you know, we're dumping a lot of money in the wrong direction these days, and have created a huge wage gap.
Oh, unquestionably. But how much of this goes back to, here's what is so mind-blowing to me, is you have one side saying that we need more power in the hands of the government to solve these problems. And I'm sorry, but I haven't seen any problem solved by the government anytime recently at all. Does that mean that the government's never solved the problem ever? No, it doesn't. But I haven't seen anything in modern times that made me go, wow, great job, y'all really fixed that. It seems that things become more convoluted and gray. And
well, a better example is like, well, currently what's going on in the Middle East. I mean, you know, America's in the process of solving a problem that they create.
Oh, well, you can't tell people that. That's, of course, the truth, but people, they don't want to accept that. More importantly, they don't want to acknowledge what's actually happening.
And again, I'm not stopping at just ISIS. I'm talking about the entire history of American Middle Eastern relations, ever going back all the way to the 50s.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look at with Iran. I mean, that's mainly what you're referring to. And it doesn't make, and this is what people misunderstand too. They play this whole George W. Bush, you're either with us or you're with the terrorists. There's no in between. Sorry, that's not the way the real world works. The real world is, there's gray areas on some of that stuff. And does that mean that Iran is some great good thing? No, it doesn't. Does that mean that we have the right to then go in and overthrow their country? No, it doesn't. Because we did it in Iraq. How'd that work out for the people of Iraq? Weren't we supposed to bring them freedom? But what did they get? They got bombs falling from the sky. Look at Mosul right now. It is an absolute shambles. The human rights abuses that are going on right there, people are fleeing out of there by the thousands. People are trapped in that city. It's the way people were talking about Aleppo. And, it was this huge human rights crisis. And now that it's happening in Mosul because it's the United States, oh, wait, no, we don't know about that. We can't report on that. Nobody cares about that. It makes the United States look really bad. They can't pin it on Russia, and that's what they were trying to do in Syria, which we all know that was really just an excuse. They still want to side out. It's all about regime change. For whatever reason, they've got these sick, twisted plots of constant regime change in that region. It didn't work in Iraq, period. If you look what's happening in Libya right now, which is just horrific what those people are having to go through, does that mean that Gaddafi was a good person? No, it doesn't. It doesn't mean that at all. But what's been brought to them since he left is worse. That's what people need to realize.
And we need to rewind that. But rewind that just for a second, because, again, how can we cast any judgment whatsoever on what kind of leader Gaddafi was for his people. Any kind of international skirmish or any kind of skirmish that he had with other countries or disagreements or so on and so forth, he was able to justify to his people, and they were cheered in the streets just like they do right now. We throw that number out about the fact that
there were certainly people in all of these drone strikes have been hated him.
Well, I'm sure there were. There's plenty of people here that are very pissed off at the leaders that we have here, and for a lot of good reasons. Most of the people that are pissed off the leaders here don't really have a good reason. See the current situation with Trump, see when Obama got into office, and there were really good reasons to distrust those politicians and not like their policies and so on and so forth. But usually it was just some sort of partisan talking point.
Here's the important thing to remember. Okay, the United States says we're going to go into this country and we're going to give them freedom and everything's going to be better and we're going to fix everything. We're going to set it up and we're going to have capitalism. It's going to be great. And what they actually do is completely different than that. They go in there, they create a bunch of chaos, which then is a vacuum for the so-called terrorism that they're supposedly fighting. But in the reality is they're just creating it. They're just creating a bunch of terrorism, and inside of the chaos, it then gives them an excuse to stay over there and stay in constant war, because war is a business, and war is a business that makes a lot of money. So there's never any intentions of leaving these countries whatsoever. We're still in Afghanistan. Why? Why are we still in, they don't even offer up excuses for that one anymore. That's just one that's been completely forgotten about. We've been bombing Yemen, conducting raids in Yemen. 9 children were killed. Nobody says a word about it. Nobody cares. What's the point of all this? What is the point? You're not going there to promote freedom. You're going there because war is a business and killing people is a business. And that sounds really harsh to some people probably, but that's the facts of what we're seeing. And we're seeing it all over that region.
And we're even past the point now where, we've made the argument, America's over there for natural resources and, pretty much whatever they can glean out of the region. But they've been over there long enough and at least should have set up whatever infrastructure they wanted to in areas that they were going to do that. We can't even use that excuse anymore. There's something far more sinister for them to have dug their heels in. And I think that's what it is pure greed. You have a lot of corporations that have a lot of money tied up over there. And it's an investment.
Lockheed Martin's big money. It's big money, and they got lobbyists. And if you're in peacetime, what you gonna do? Sit there and build a bunch of weapons that you can't use? And once you build them, what are you gonna do? Let's build them, use them, and keep building some more. Let's build them, use them, sell them. Somebody else. We'll win twice. We'll make twice as many weapons. We'll make weapons for us, and we'll make weapons for the other guys. Then we'll give them all to them and say, look at all the weapons we got, and we'll go in there and attack them. That's what we've seen. That's what U.S. foreign policy has become, is we're creating our own enemy to give us an excuse to be in war. That's really sad, but that's really true.
Yep. That's exactly right.
And I don't know. We've only got a minute here. For anybody that hasn't, please visit the antimedia.org. Look in the Vault 7. There's a ton of information going on. Keep up with what's going on with the North Korea situation. For Shannon, for SM Gibson, Anti-Media Radio, out.
I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo.
Truth on the Tracks you can catch every Monday night and Friday night at